So here we go. Welcome to I think it's our fourth seminar. This one's all to do with the signing off of surveys, but also a couple of other useful tips and tricks that you might get on the surveys side of things within the Marcus system. So today, what I thought we'd do is we would cover the functionality that we released a little while ago. It would have been in our release notes. I can't remember exactly how long, but certainly over 12 months ago. And it's something that we've been asked about a couple of times since, so I thought it'd be useful to do a session on it, and that's how to approve surveys that have been completed by your engineers on the mobile app in the back office. So in other words, a QS or a manager putting their signature to a survey to say that yes, I confirm that this has been done satisfactorily, or yes, I sign off on this survey. And after that, I thought what we'd do is we'd also cover off a piece of functionality that a lot of people don't know you can do, but have started to ask more and more, and that is how can I edit the results of surveys that the engineers have done in the back office. So say, for example, they make a load of spelling mistakes, or like predictive text goes wrong on them and they get a load of random characters in a description or something. How can I fix that? Well, you'll be pleased to hear there is a way of doing that, and I'll show you how that happens. And also, something that we released, I'd say in the last couple of years, is the conditional surveys. So creating surveys with questions which the answers to which will provide further questions. So as you answer a certain response, a next set of questions will appear so that they're not always on screen and always prompting you to do the questions as you go. So we'll make a start, first of all, with the first part, which is how to sign off on surveys. So this requires no additional setup at all. The only thing that it requires is that the survey that you're using must be a standard template that supports it. So when you're creating surveys, one of the fields on the setup screen is the print style, and usually you would set standard. If you've got a specific thing such as a gas safety survey or an electrical condition report, something like that, those things are more bespoke layouts, and we can add the additional signatures to those, but by default we are showing it on the standard template at the moment. So if you've got a specific template you use for, say, an electrical test, and you go, actually it'd be really good to have this on there, then please speak to us and we can adapt your layout to include the additional signature. But it's really easy to use, and I'll show you how it works in a minute. But essentially, you might recognize that screenshot that you can see in front of you now. That's the screen you get to when you approve a job after completion. It's not always on every system, but most people do, because this is where you can trigger things like the first time fix report. So here you've got this tick box for first time fix. That all goes towards your KPIs. So a lot of people have this screen on for that. But you may have probably not even noticed, but down at the bottom there is this add signature option, and that is the thing that controls whether you are signing off on a survey or not. So here we have a job that is at status complete, and what we've got in our things down here is we have got some surveys in the inspections. So at the moment they're not very exciting. We've got our risk assessments and we've got an end of visit. Obviously they could be things like electrical condition reports, they could be a gas survey, it could be a drainage survey, whatever it needs to be. Alicia's got a question. That's a good question. Will this apply to timesheets? No, this is solely to do with surveys. Timesheets are a completely different thing. That would have to be something that would be a separate functionality altogether. It literally just applies to survey printouts, not timesheets. So on this one, let's use the end of visit survey. If I press print on that, it's not very exciting. I'm just going to expand it and zoom in on it so you can see. A few questions, a few answers, and at the very bottom we can see we've got two signatures, which are squiggles. If I now go to the top of our job sheet, and if I hit the approved button, we step into the advanced completion screen, which is the screenshot you just saw on my slide, and we have the add signature button at the bottom. So when I tick on that, the very first time you do this, if you don't have a signature set up for your user account, so this is you as the user logged in at the moment, then it will ask you to input one or to upload one. Of course, you can cancel and come out of that and never do this, but if you do wish to add a signature, which we do, we press OK, and we get a little browse option here, where if I just browse now and do a signature file that I prepared earlier and upload that. That's now uploaded, and when I press continue, that's now moved my job on in its status to the next stage in my system, which in this version of the demo system takes us straight through to approved for charging. So now when I go back to our printout of our survey and I expand on it and I zoom in so you can probably already see a slight difference at the bottom there already. We've got my AN supervisor signature that I've put in there, and the supervisor's signature has been associated to this along with the username of the person. So that would be your full name as your login. I'm using a login on my demo system of Webinar User, which is why it shows that. That would be your name, and that would be the signature file that you've uploaded. This can be done on any of your surveys, and as long as, at the moment anyway, by default, as long as it's using the standard template, which is our standard layout, it will just work without any additional work. But as I said before, if you do want to add anything like this, sort of the signature, to any of your bespoke survey layouts that aren't the standard, please let us know, and that's something that we could look to do for you. So the next part to this is editing of survey results. So there are a couple of bits that need setting up for this one that are slightly more than what you just saw in the previous part to this webinar. The first part is that the individual survey sections, or the actions as they're known in our system, they need to be ticked to allow survey editing. And also the users that are allowed to edit these surveys have a user permission that can be ticked against them. So it's limited by a user permission so that not everyone can do it. And it's also limited by certain surveys, because you might have certain ones that you simply are not allowed to edit. Whereas some of them you might decide, actually this particular section on this particular survey where the engineer has to write a load of words, they always get it wrong, let's allow that part of it only to be editable. And that's just fine as well. And it's done by, as you can see in the survey setup, this allow survey editing tick box. Now you might be sat there thinking, I've never seen that. And the reason you've never seen it will be because there is a system option that we control behind the scenes that make all this work. So unless the system option to allow editing of surveys is on, you won't get that option on your survey screen. So if this is something that interests you, you'll need to ask us to turn it on in your system. And then you'll need to speak to whoever edits your surveys within your organisation to tick the boxes for the survey actions you want doing. And also whoever administers the user accounts within your organisation as well, you'll need to get them to tick against the users that need that permission. And once you've done all that, bearing in mind, of course, user permissions, every time you change those, you have to log out and log back in. It doesn't take effect immediately. You have to log out and log back in again for it to work. But once you've done all that, that will then allow you to edit survey results. So if I now take us to our little demo system again, bear with me, there we go. And if I take us to a job that I prepared earlier in true Blue Peter fashion, we have an inspection here for the damp and mold report. So if I click on print there, just so you can see what I'm talking about, this is, I've used the damp and mold report because this featured in our webinar last time and I thought, why not use it? So here we can see we've got a damp and mold report where we've got some additional comments where we've made a spelling mistake. I think that's probably supposed to say window, but it clearly doesn't. And I've also abbreviated skirting board and spelt cupboard wrong. So I might want to change those in my survey. So if you just take us back here, we've got our damp and mold report. Because I'm now logged in as a user that allows editing of surveys, and this survey is editable, there is an edit button shown on the right hand side, which if you remember wasn't shown on the previous login. So if I hit edit now on that survey, I get taken into a screen that looks a little like this, where I get the survey results in the different sections that are available. There was 2 sections to my surveys. There was the damp and mold report and then additional locations. And all I do, you're probably already one step ahead of me, I simply hit the word edit. And I change it. to use better English, and you can see that the words I've just typed in are now showing here. If I hit the back button to go to our job sheet and then hit print again, just to prove to you that this does actually work and it's not all magic. Right, zoom in so you can read the results. There we go. Window now looks correct, and skirting board behind cupboard is done correctly as well. So what I'd like to show you is, just quickly, I know it was on my screenshot, but under the setup menu in surveys, if I find my damp and mold survey and I hit edit to step into the edit screens, the place that controls the allow editing is against the actions, and the actions are these sections here. So if I minimize that, you can see what we've got here is we've got two actions, the initial damp and mold report and the additional location there. So if I just expand that so it looks more familiar, you've got allow editing as ticked over there. If I press the edit pencil and then edit my action, you can see it allows survey editing here. So once you've ticked that and saved your report, it will allow you to alter the surveys from the job sheet. In order to allow editing of survey results, you've got a couple of things. First of all, it's not shown on that slide, but we need to turn it on in your system to allow you to do it to start with. Once it's on, you need to edit the individual actions on the individual surveys to which ones you want to be editable, and your users need a permission ticked as well. Part 3 of our little survey tips and tricks. This is all to do with conditional survey questions. Some of you already use this, so you're probably aware of how it works on the mobile app. In terms of a quick demo, if I take us back into our survey setup and I show you one that's already done, and then what I'll do is I'll show you how to create a really basic one. So in the damp and mold report, as we can see here, this has got a section over on this side here for controlling task and controlling value. And it's these two columns here that influence the sort of the conditional aspect of this. So if we look at this question here, location 1 of damp and mold, this question is controlled by the answer to this question. So above here, we've got this one here. Should the property be investigated for damp and mold, yes or no? If the user answers yes to that question, then they get presented with this question. So should the property be investigated? Yes. Please provide the location. Before we introduce this, what you'd have had is you'd have had every question listed, and it would have probably had words like, if yes, please provide. If yes, please provide. Whereas now what we do is we hide it all and we give you the questions if you tell them they're needed. So again, all these questions here, these three, are controlled by a yes answer to this one. So if it's to be required to be investigated, we show you these questions. How to set that up? I'm just going to go into an existing survey and add some conditional questions for you. So I've got an end of visit question set here. You saw the results to that on the demo I did earlier for the signing off of a survey. It's a really basic survey where at the end of a visit we want them to take a photo. Were there any near misses? If yes, please provide details. Well, this seems like a really good idea for a conditional question. So if yes, please provide details. Well, you shouldn't really need to provide anything in there unless it was a yes. So if we edit our action and then step in to edit the survey, if I edit this question now and I add the controlling task of this question here. So were there any near misses or unsafe incidents during the work? If I say yes, then this question here will appear if I answer yes to that one. Was the work area left tidy? If it wasn't, please provide a reason. Well, again, if I just search for the word tidy, I should get it. Was the work area left tidy? If I say no, there we go. So was it left tidy? If it was not left tidy, please provide response. This question only appears if the person says no. So we've got two conditional questions going on now. So if I update that questionnaire now and save the whole thing, and then I bounce us over to our mobile app view. So if I step into a job, and I am literally going to fly through the mobile app build now to get to the survey screen. So clearly this is not how we expect our engineers to be rattling through a job. End of visit, there's our survey. So were there any near misses or unsafe incidents during the work? If I say no, we move on. If I say yes, we now get, if yes, please provide details. Was the work area left tidy? Yes. Fine, no problems. If I say no, if it wasn't, please provide a reason. So as you can see, the controlling task and the controlling question, rather, was the work area left tidy, was the last one we did. No, then that's what prompts that question. So you can see it in action on the mobile app there. That was a really basic one. And you can do all sorts with that, and it controls it with various, as long as the words are correct that you type in the controlling value, you can then get some really good questions coming up, and it's really handy, so that what you end up with is actually what looks to be quite a concise survey. What you can end up with sometimes is really messy looking ones if you've had to list literally every question and every, say, if you're doing a dynamic risk assessment, every single possible risk that could happen, whereas actually if you have a question that says, are you working at height, yes or no? Then if you say yes, you get all the things to do with working at height rather than having to list millions of actions on a survey. So I hope that was useful. Next month, we're doing a session again, our next webinar, and it's all things to do with issuing and scheduling jobs. So the issue job screen, there are often lots of questions that arise from that. And sometimes when we visit customers that have used our system for a while, we discover that certain features on the issue job screen are not being used correctly, or were unaware what they did. So we thought it'd be useful to have a session on how to issue jobs and then how to manage the scheduling of jobs and the different ways we can do that within Marcus. And finally, and I know I plugged this sort of at the end of our last webinar, our office open day is next week, and we'll be hosting a selection of contractors from our customer base. So if you're not coming and you would like to come, please let us know. There is a link that I can send to you where you can register your interest in coming, and let us know sort of how many of you are coming and that kind of thing, so we know to expect you. But that's next week. It's on Tuesday at our office in Manchester. And if you're around the night before, we are hosting sort of like a drinks reception as well at Rain Bar, which is the quite nice pub by the canal just near the Bridgewater Hall, if you don't know. Any questions, feel free to ask. I'll stick around for a few minutes. If not, thanks for coming. Join us next time for scheduling.